Okay, perfect. Hi, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, rather. Welcome to the webinar on data collection. So how to go from months to weeks in data collection and how to cut your time. So while we wait, I will say a couple of orga stuff. So essentially, feel free to ask questions either in the Q&A section, in the chat section. You can always raise your hand and I'll unmute you so you can also interact with our speakers properly. On that note, the session will be recorded and we will share the session with you afterwards. So let's give it a little time, maybe 1-2 minutes more until the rest of attendees join, and then we can start. Amazing. Maybe we can jump off with a quick introduction. So again, for those who weren't there before, welcome to our webinar from months to weeks. So cut EPD data collection time by about 50%. So here we have two amazing speakers, Jona from our side from Emile and Emile from Centrum Paele. So I'll leave the floor to you, Jona. Yeah.
Thank you, and welcome also from my or our side. Thanks a lot for joining and for your interest. We have sunny weather here. Thanks for joining the webinar. And also thanks a lot, of course, to you, Emile, for joining as a speaker today. My name is Jona Rossmann. I work for EMIDAT since almost 3 years now, and I work as a product manager, and I'm happy to guide you through the webinar today. So what this webinar will be about is we will learn about how to cut the time for data collection for EPDs tremendously. We will see a lot of practical insights from how an actual materials manufacturer approaches the data collection for EPD from Centrum Paele, from you, Emile. And we will also dive into the requirements, the data collection structures, and so on, that you as a manufacturer can really go out of this webinar today with a clear picture of how you can approach this, what data is required, what you need to go through a smooth and successful EPD data collection process. The agenda today will be first, the welcome, which is now. Second, we will have a look into frequent challenges that we as EMIDAT see with our customers. Then also we will have a look into the data layers behind an SCA. What are the requirements? How is it structured? Then dive into the case study with Centrum Paele. And also, last but not least, we'll talk about the data collection improvements and the future of data collection, how EPD tools like EMIDAT can bring you to success there. And last but not least, we will have a dedicated Q&A session. So feel free to note down your questions or write them in the chat, as Steffi said, and we'll happy to have a discussion afterwards. Let's start into it. A quick introduction from our side. So as I said, for those of you who do not know us, I think we have already quite some manufacturers who do know us, but also for the rest, we're EMIDAT. We are a software for climate native product management, and we make it a business value to produce and provide sustainable materials. We are very proud that we can count the world's largest building material manufacturers to our customer base, such as Sika, Schwenk, Cemex, Bauda, Carlyle, Tarmac, Triflex, Heidelberg Materials. So quite some known names, more than 150 customers. We support more than 50 product groups, have quite some happy customers, I would say, with an average customer rating of 9.3, and are also active in more than 20 countries. So handing over to you, Emile, also for an introduction about you and Centrum Paele.
Yeah, okay. My name is Emile Fabrice Anguet. I'm Sustainability Manager in Centrum Paele. I have an education, some civil engineer, and I'm structural engineer is why I start before I jump to the sustainability part. So I choose to making another studying another master with focus in sustainability. My expertise is more on life cycles assessment. I'm also an EPD expert on the GNB consultant, who is the German structure who ensure that the project and building have that sustainability certifications. So I also appointed the third part, the EPD verifier for EPD Global. So, yeah. Centrum Paele group is a leading producer of precast concrete piles for foundations. We try to find a good solution for foundation for in the construction industry and infrastructure. We are represented in 5 countries, and we have 8 factories, 3 factories in Sweden, 2 in Denmark, and 1 in Poland, Germany, and UK. We are special just concrete and some other product, but the focus here is the concrete and steel product. One of my role is also to ensure the collaboration, the alignment, the performance, and sustainability across the group, not just in Centrum Paele, Denmark. I ensure that was the coordination about the initiative, sharing the information and knowledge. Like I say every time, we are a group, but we are just a little group inside a big group, because we are a part of Per Osleif Group, who has more than 10,000 employees. So we have that when we say, okay, we try to speak the same language, use the same concept, the same logo, and try to find how we can use the same initiative, and when we are a group where we produce the same product, so we try to implement the same initiative and share our experience here in Denmark to the other part of Europe, the country where we have our factories. So the part on sustainability, that is my role, to ensure that we have the same, one company, one group, and we want sustainability.
Right. Thank you, Emile. So that is already quite a complex base situation, but I think you mastered it quite well. Cool. Thank you. Then let's proceed. Let's start into the content with what we at Imidat see with our customers. What are the frequent challenges with data collection? So what we commonly see with data collection are 4 main challenges. Let me go into detail. So challenge 1 are, of course, unclear data requirements. So when you're preparing an LCA, the challenge, of course, is that many manufacturers do not have a clear picture of exactly what data is needed, in what format, in which life cycle modules, until they are already super deep into the process, even though they didn't want to become experts initially. And this is partly because of the standards, of course. They are written for LCA practitioners in the first instance, and not for production managers or manufacturers as you are. Also, of course, the product category rules, the PCRs, add another layer of product-specific requirements. And the language that is spoken in those standards, it sometimes can be hard to translate into concrete data collection checklists, so to say. And the result of that is, of course, the team starts collecting data. They realize halfway through that something critical is maybe missing, maybe an energy split between production lines or so, the exact composition of packaging material. And then they have to go back, chase down colleagues and start all over. And this unclear requirement often delays the whole project. And the lesson here is simple. Before you kick it off and start collecting data, invest the time to first map out what exactly is needed and in which structure. Challenge 2, now you know exactly what data you need. You have it mapped out. And the challenge number 2 is now the limited data availability. So in most manufacturing companies, the data that feeds an LCA is spread across multiple systems, across multiple departments, across multiple tools. The energy bills are maybe with the facility team. The raw material quantities are in the ERP. Waste records might be in a spreadsheet someone maintains manually. Transport data might even be with an external freight partner. So you can see none of this data is originally collected for LCA purposes. It is there, but it is spread and it is collected for purchasing, for operations, for compliance, but not especially for the granularity or the structure that a life cycle analysis would require. So the consequence of that is that manufacturers often end up substituting missing primary data with, for example, estimated data, or have a lot of effort in chasing that data. And increasingly, also customers, but also green building schemes, also the CPR, of course, are asking now really for product-specific data. So generic data won't cut it anymore. So this is a structural challenge, and it requires manufacturers that we day per day work with to think about to build better data infrastructures over time, and not just for their next EPD. So really as an ongoing, robust capability. The third challenge is closely related to the first two, but it deserves an own spotlight, which is error-prone data collection frameworks. So now you have maybe mapped out what is needed and you have also the data available, but now it is about building a robust framework where no errors happen. So when a manufacturer embarks in LCA for the first time or even the third or fifth time, the data collection might be coordinated through a combination of emails, shared spreadsheets, informal conversations, phone calls, oftentimes also physical traveling. Someone sends a template to 10 different colleagues and everyone interprets it slightly differently, fills in data in different ways without anyone noticing. And these inconsistencies are incredibly common, and they create errors that are sometimes only caught during the third-party verification. So once the EPD is actually already done. And at this point of time, fixing those errors costs the manufacturer both time and money. And in some cases, in worst case, LCA studies may even fail entirely and have to be redone. So the root cause for this is that data collection for LCA requires a very specific kind of precision and consistency that most business processes are at the moment not designed to deliver. And without clear instructions and built-in validation checks and a controlled, guided, step-by-step workflow, those mistakes are almost inevitable. And this is why also, of course, digital tools can help in a data collection that build in those plausibility checks, flag missing values, and so on, and guide the user through the process step by step. And closing with the fourth challenge that we often see with manufacturers day by day is probably the most underestimated one. It's high coordination effort. An LCA, as most of you probably already know, touches almost every corner of a manufacturing operation. So you need input from production, from procurement, from logistics, from waste management. And in large organizations, these departments may sit in different buildings, even in different countries, in different organizational units, and everyone has their own priorities, their own timelines, and their own way of understanding the data requests. So coordinating all of this usually falls to one person. One of them we have sitting here with Emile. It's usually a sustainability manager or environmental engineer or so on. And without the right structure, this person just ends up spending more time chasing approvals, clarifying questions, than actually working on and with the environmental data. And lastly, there's also one point I would like to highlight. It's also, of course, a cultural dimension. So in many companies, sustainability reporting may be still a compliance exercise rather than a core business function. So when the sustainability team asks for production data, for energy data, and so on, it's often deprioritized in favor of operational demands, of course. So the key here is to address this challenge as a cross-functional ownership and make sure that LCA data collection is embedded in existing processes so that the right people know their role in advance, and also there's an organizational buy-in from the internal stakeholders to make the data collection happen efficiently. So to summarize, manufacturers mostly face those four interconnected data challenges on a path to credible and successful LCA and EPDs. First, unclear data requirements, not knowing what's needed. Second, limited data availability. So the right data exists somewhere, but not in the right place or format. Third, error-prone frameworks. So there might be an inconsistent collection process that is prone to mistakes. And fourth, a high coordination effort. So the organizational burden of involving multiple stakeholders and departments. This might be, sound a bit intimidating, but none of these challenges is unsurmountable, of course. But they do require manufacturers to approach LCA and EPD not as a one-off project, but as a repeatable, robust, and structured process that is supported with the right tools and also, of course, the right organizational commitment. Then let's continue. The data layers behind an LCA. Let's have a look on where the requirements for the data come from and what they are if you want to create an EPD. Again, we identified four main requirements that are important for you as a manufacturer to know. And those are, first of all, the PCR requirements. I scratched a little bit upon it already. The PCR is the product category rule. You can think of a PCR as a rule book how to calculate an LCA for your specific product type. It tells you which life cycle stages must be covered, how to handle specific scenarios, what the declared unit is, what data sources are acceptable, and so on. Those PCRs are issued by program operators, which are the institutes that publish the EPD and also organize the independent third-party verification. For example, there's EPD Global, EPD International, ENIAS, or EBU. And what is important to know here, there's no universal LCA data checklist. It always depends on the specific PCR. So the learning should here be that before you start developing an EPD, you should be aware of what the PCR is and understand it. And this is also, of course, something where digital tools help. The second bucket is the reporting period. LCA data is not collected in a single point of time, but it needs to reflect a representative period of production. The requirement is 1 full calendar year. And this is important because production volumes, energy consumption, material inputs, and so on can, of course, fluctuate significantly across seasons or also due to one-off events. And collecting the data for a full year smooths out those variations and gives a clear picture that is actually representative. Third point is the data validity. So even if you have data from a previous LCA or an older internal study that already exists in your company, consider that it may not be usable because it is outdated. The rule is the following: all primary data must be not older than 5 years. And also additionally, all the data must, of course, come from the same time period. And in practice, this means EPDs need to be renewed and updated on a regular cycle, which is also another reason why manufacturers should treat data collection as an ongoing process rather than a one-time effort. Fourth bucket, and the last one for this slide, is the allocation, which is perhaps the most technically complex of the four. In most manufacturing facilities, there are multiple production processes happening, and a single production process produces more than one product. And this makes it a bit complicated, for example, with energy that is shared across multiple production lines, and so on. So allocation is the method by which you assign energy, materials, other inputs and outputs to a specific unit of your product that you want to declare the EPD for. And the PCR there will also tell you how this allocation approach should be done. So those are the 4 dimensions: the PCR requirements, the reporting periods, the data validity, and the allocation. And those form, I would say, the main framework with which all the data collection must operate. And understanding those 4 buckets upfront is really what we see, what separates a smooth EPD process from a chaotic one.
Jona, before we continue, we have the first question. Should be, what is your approach to modeling new products based on unstable production data? For instance, if energy consumption is only starting to stabilize in the last 3 months due to engineering efforts, could you publish an EPD based on stabilized energy consumption of the line for the last 3 months?
There are ways to do it, but it has to be clarified with the independent verifier upfront for, like, I would say, specific niche cases. So if this is justifiable due to certain events or certain changes in the production process development, then it might be accepted. So I have seen cases where this happened, yes.
Perfect. I hope the question is answered, but there's no further at the moment.
All right. If it is, maybe one amendment, if it is a product that is about to be produced or is just newly in the portfolio, then there is also other types of EPDs. So, for example, a prospective EPD for products that will be produced and sold on the market in the future. But that is a bit different and has to be differentiated from the regular EPDs. Right. Good. Then let's have a quick look into the details of how the data that has to be collected actually should look like. So there are basically 3 large columns: materials, production, and products. Let's start on the left, the materials level. Here you're collecting data about everything that goes into your product and remains a part of your product, so your materials. That means not just the name of the material, but also how much is needed to produce 1 unit of the final product, who supplies it, how it was transported, because yeah, as you probably can imagine, the carbon footprint is quite different if it was shipped from overseas than sourced somehow locally. We see that this data typically lives in your procurement systems, most commonly in ERP systems like SAP. And the challenge is that ERP systems are designed for purchasing and inventory management, not specifically for LCA, of course. So while that data exists, it's often not structured in a way that's directly usable for environmental reporting. Supplier names may be a bit inconsistent, and so on, but they already exist, and that's where we most commonly see them being or exist. Second one is the production. So moving to the middle column here, this is where you collect the data about what your manufacturing process actually consumes, but is not part of the product itself. That means, for example, electricity, fuels, water consumption, ancillary materials like lubricants, cleaning agents, and so on, and also, of course, waste. And this data is typically managed by plant management systems, often also energy management system. And this is also where the multi-plant challenge becomes real. So if you manufacture the same product across several facilities, each with different energy sources, different efficiencies, and so on, it is required to collect and reconcile this separately. And last but not least, products, the most important point of this, the right column, this is where all the upstream data comes then together to describe the specific product that you're declaring. So you need product information, a description, a name, of course, technical specifications, for example, like dimensions, weight, composition, that is relevant to the declared or functional unit. And then crucially, the main part, the BOM, the bill of materials, or the composition, so the exact formulation that defines how much of each raw material goes into one unit of the product. Again, this data lives most commonly in product development or management systems, again, like ERP, SAP, sometimes also in a separate PIM system, so a product information management system. Yeah, so this often exists there. So what is the key takeaway? The slide shows us that basically a complete EPD data set requires input from those three large different systems, often tackling procurement, plant management, and product management. And in many organizations, this means at least 3 different departments, each with their own formats, update cycles, and so on. But the good news is that they are there, and it's most often the same places where they exist. Right. Then this is, again, like a little bit of a more simple overview. Yeah, the purchasing is often the purchasing department, the procurement department is most often owning the material level, the production, the process level, and the R&D or PM department, the product level. Right, so I would say enough of theory and what we heard about of our customers. Let's really dive deep into the practice, and let's have a look on a practical example how this was implemented in practice. Over to you, Emile.
Yeah, thank you.
Emile, before we jump in, just very quickly, because we have one last question before we go into the case study. Just for clarification, is product level is in the consumer phase, or where does it stand?
Not entirely sure. What do you mean here?
So if we go 2 slides back, can here is the product level information in the consumer phase.
The product level is only the composition and the description of what the characteristics of the product are, what the product is composed of, and what the technical specifications around the product that you're declaring is. It is not yet about how the product is used, how the product is treated, repaired, and so on, if that is what you meant.
I hope so. There's no follow-up at the moment. So yeah, perfect. Amazing. Emile, so sorry for the intro.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Feel free to start.
Yeah, Centrum Paele, like I say, we have two types of product. We produce concrete product and steel product. We have many other product, but I choose to show you the product where we has already produced EPDs in Emile system. So, our standard piles is more, I think everybody know our piles, but they didn't know is from Centrum Paele. When, example, when you travel with trains, you can see that columns, that steel columns, electrification steel columns. The foundation under that column is from Centrum Paele. You can see that in all European countries when you travel. Yeah. And we also now try to introduce straw pile, concrete straw piles in the Danish market. It's not a new solution because it's a whole solution. You have that in other parts of Europe, in Switzerland and France maybe. It was just a solution where we think, okay, when you build, you have big project inside the city. So to avoid noise and vibration, so we try to come with that solution to our customer. So that is one, the two of many concrete product we have in Centrum Paele. The next one. We also have, we produce pile joints is because we have, the idea was when we start to produce that was, okay, the maximum length of our pile is 18 meters. So, but you have some foundation would need maybe 15, 35 of all. So we try to find how we can combine that together. So we have just one pile. So that is why we find that solution is designed here in Centrum Paele is our solution to ensure that our customer can have some pile with more than 18 meters. The rock shoes is used is where the pile need to be ensured in a very hard ground, such as a rock, you know. So we use that product. So it was the two. I think is also a Centrum Paele solution. We try to find that solution to our customer to help them to make sure that they can install our piles anywhere they want. Yeah, before when we produce EPDs, when you look how the whole system was, we have too many places where we can find our data, or we didn't have that control, or we that's why where we were forced to use a consultant, external consultant, to help us to collect our data. But with the whole system, like we say, it was so expensive and it take time. It was maybe 9 months to one year to produce an EPD. So when I start here, so I think, okay, it was not a good solution. We need to find a good solution because we can see that in our system, our data collection was, we have too much information, too much data, we cannot find. So, or they take time or they take money to have a external consultant who also will try to find inside our own system. So it was so difficult. But after that, we think, how can we find the good solutions who can help us to save time? We didn't think about money before. We think about time because I know when you didn't have the good process about the data collection, it will take time. Or we will also ensure that we have the good data quality. So with the old way, it was not, of course, we have some data quality, but the process was not clear. Sometimes we have too much department involved, and sometimes I remember when you send some mail to people, you can wait maybe 2 months before they answer to your mail, and or when you need the data now. So that's why we think, okay, which solution we can implement here in Centrum Paele. So we ensure that we can have the good data quality and create some EPDs on not in too much time. That is why we decide to, before we contact Emile, we try to find a good solution about how we can collect or where we can find our data. That is where we come with the new solutions.
Emile, can you maybe point out like the most or the biggest contributors to why this process was so time consuming?
It was because, we have too much department, too much process. So if it was more the communication, the collaboration, because sometimes you have some department who didn't think about how they can collect the data. So like maybe in production, they know the routine, they know how they make something, so they didn't need to put that in the Excel file of all. So they have that knowledge and experience to produce things of all. But like we say, the problem with the construction industry is that we are so conservative. So when we have a solution, we keep that solution. We didn't like that with digitalization of all. So it was so difficult to try to convince people to accept that digitalization part.
Nice, thank you.
But our solution, after, of course, many meetings with all the department and all the CEO of the group, so we find a good solution when we think, okay, we need a solution where we can centralize our data, where we can find and collect our data. That is why we choose in our data process, we choose in ERP system, which is called Business Centrum. Is like you see there, up there, you can see this where all our data, you can find all our data, or you can collect the data from that Business Centrum. But the problem was, okay, it's more all the data. So we also need to ensure that about sustainability, we have good data quality. Is where we start to define the use, the goals. We set the data requirement, which data we want, which what is the data who is important about when we not just for the EPDs, but also for the sustainability report. We also ensure that we select the good source and we have the good methodology about which data is very important for sustainability, because the other part they have, of course, financial of all, but how my focus was to try to find, okay, why can we do for sustainability in Centrum Paele Group? Or we start with that here in Centrum Paele, or we implement that in the other factories. So we try to collect and standardize our data, or we have also a system when we think, okay, when, of course, we have so many data, but you need to clean and fill your data. You need to choose first. The first check, we think, okay, which data is very important? Which data can we say, okay, that data is not important for sustainability? So it's where we make the first check. We ensure that, okay, after that check, the data will go in the system about sustainability is just the data we need for sustainability. Or we also make sure that the data we have with sustainability ensure with our compliance, or we, in collaboration and dialogue with our supplier, we try also to help them and set some data requirement, because we think, okay, example, cement and steel is our biggest emission emit in Centrum Paele. So we decide from specific these two products, we want to have EPDs. We will not use secondary data of all. We need EPD from our suppliers. So it was a requirement. So we ensure that, okay, we know every supplier doesn't have some EPD, but the two is our biggest emissions emit. So we ensure that, okay, if we will continue with our collaboration, we need to have that EPDs, specific EPDs for the three. We have for three types of cement, 4 to 3 types of cement we use here. So we also have that process at before I put the data in the Emile system, we have some quality check. So that ensure that the final data I put in the Emile platform is the good data, is the good quality data, or we have pre-check. So after that pre-check, so yes, okay, now we have the good, we can put that in the platform. Like I said before, the biggest problem was how we can find the good solution to collect the data. With that solution we have now, we have maximum 1 week to collect our data. 1 week is because we have that quality check process. before, but it's one internally decision we have there. But I think they can take the same day. If you know you know where you can find your data, they can take 1 day, 2 days, maybe. But we choose here in Centrum Paele to have data quality check before I can put the data in the system, in the EPD platform. So for us now, it's so easy when I have the data. I think with your system, we can produce so many EPD we want. The calculation, like I said, the EPD process is just always in the system because we have a third-party verified tools. So the calculation is made there. It's instant. It's instant. It's automatic. Yeah, the calculation. So for us, the big part was how we can collect the data. Where now, when we have the solution, it's so easy for Centrum Paele to produce and develop and publish some EPDs. Or with your immediate system, we have, I think, is more than 60 EPD we have produced now.
Perfect. Then
okay, maybe a question in the meanwhile. Then we can jump into the last part. Yeah. The question is, are you producing location-specific EPDs or grouped over country based on average and worst-case scenarios?
It's location because we have our tools have 7 plants because we have new factory, but we will make other plant. But every country have a plant. Every factory have a plant in our system, so it's more locally. So it's not for the whole group. It's every factories need to produce their own EPDs for their product.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's continue, Jona.
Good. Thank you, Emile. That was super insightful. Perfect. Then let's close the webinar with a short outlook. We, of course, want you to give you some things at hand, how we think you can improve your data collection, and also why we think that the platform is helpful in that regard. So what are the key benefits of a platform for data collection in EPD summarized? It is clear data requirements. You're guided through a structure with 3 columns basically that clarify what exactly needs to be collected in what format. So there is not so much room for interpretation anymore. Second one, streamlined data upload. So you don't have to enter everything manually. You can also use the bulk uploads where you can directly export, for example, from your ERP system or other internal systems and bulk upload them into the platform. So that also saves a lot of manual entry. And of course, also reduces or minimizes errors. We're also working on ERP integrations for even more automated data collection, which I come to in a second. Third one is simple data management. So with one platform, you have one single source of truth. So one single place where all the data is consolidated, and you can review it and manage it and update it by yourself without being dependent on, for example, a consultant or so. Fourth one is automated access to supplier EPDs. So if you have materials from your suppliers and the suppliers have published EPDs for those materials that you purchase, you can, of course, also link them directly to the modeled materials on the platform and you do not have to fall back to secondary data. Fourth one, integration of databases. So the matching, as Emile already mentioned before, is happening in the pre-verification of the whole platform. So you can't do anything wrong here. It is all pre-matched for you. Secondary data is automatically selected and chosen depending on what you model, and it can be accessed through the platform. And last but not least, internal collaboration. You have one platform where multiple teams, departments, team members can contribute, can fill in data, which tremendously reduces the coordination effort. Let's have a quick look on how this looks at the EPD platform. So 2 examples that we've pulled out here is the first one, accuracy through supplier data. So you can, for example, also invite your supplier on the platform directly to create an LCA or an EPD for free with EPD and reduce their footprint or reduce your footprint for your products by using primary data instead or compared to using secondary data. And the second one is the automated matching with the background data. As you can see, if your supplier does not have an EPD or primary data available, you can automatically access more than 130,000 published EPDs, eco-invent data, and also industry standards. There's no manual query necessary. Let's also give you a short motivation, I would say. So why data collection is actually so beneficial. Also talking about future steps here. The good thing is you can use the collected data not only for EPDs, but for many different use cases, for research and development, for sales conversations, for PCFs, for LCAs, for EPDs, but also in the future, for example, also for the DPP, the digital product profile, which you then can share as a final digital profile, for example, with your customers, for example, as a QR code or as a link. And we also want to give you a short outlook on how we at EPD imagine the future of data collection. We pointed out 3 things. So first, I scratched already upon it, ERP system connection. We really want to make the materials flow into the platform without any manual work. So when you're interested in that, feel free to reach out. Second one, drag and drop unstructured data. So we really want to enable you as a manufacturer to directly drop your data as you have it available and let the platform figure out the rest, the structuring, the formatting, and so on. And last but not least, directly collect the data from your website if you allow to do so, and also public declaration of performances, maybe also with the help of artificial intelligence to collect what is already there with the documents that you already have and make life much easier in the data collection. Thanks a lot. That was, I think, quite some insightful time. Thank you also, Emile, and thank you all for listening in. Then we'll hand over to Steffi for the Q&A.
Yes, we do have a couple questions in general, but please feel free to type your questions inside. You also saw my message, so we're almost at the end of the webinar. We still want to use this last 5 minutes to just go through a couple of the most important questions here. But we're always there if you want to talk further. So first question, maybe more directed to you, Jona. Is there a minimum level of internal data maturity that you need before it's worth starting the EPD process, right? So right now we heard from Emile that at the end it helped to have an internal process, or what would you recommend?
Yes, that's a very good question. So the first motivation should always be to just start. Start and build and learn and grow while you do it. Build your processes while doing it, and not in theory. I think it's good if you really figure out what works for you internally with your own stakeholders in your company, to find your structures, your approaches actually while you're in practice of data collection. I think that's the best advice.
Amazing. All right. Jumping into the next question, a little bit. What at Emile we work with many manufacturers, but what does a realistic timeline look like? So it can vary from the size of the manufacturer, of course, the amount of products. But if I'm doing this for the first time, in your experience from kickoff to having a usable EPD data, how long does it last?
But I think when the first part is the part will take many times. It maybe 6 months. It depends of if you want your tool verify of all that is. I think that is the part will take very long. But when you have your tool verify, I think for me, sometimes I have my data collection. I follow my process about the verification of data quality. When if I send, the thing I do, I start Monday. So I send my EPD to verification on Friday. Next week, before Friday, I have my EPD verified. So the part will take long is just the implementation part of the tool on the verification. And of course, we also have that process about your data collection because Emile will help you, because I think that is why I feel when I start it was a collaboration. It was not okay. We have that. It was more communication, good communication with Emile and good collaboration. So we try to find with our experience with Emile people knowledge. We try to find a good solution. So it was maximum 6 months. They take us from the beginning to when we have that, because I think you have 3 months for the maximum 3 months for the tool verifications. So it depends of the verifier that part, but it was max 6 months. The first part will take long, but after that you have 1 week. It depends on which methodology you implement in your process. But I think from the input of data to the verification and publication, it will take maximum 3 weeks.
Amazing. Do you have another take, or is this quite accurate?
I think it's quite accurate. Yeah, of course, the first times often take a bit longer. But what we really see is once you set up your processes, it's a matter of a couple of days or weeks to really use that repeatable process that you've built. But for the first time, might take a few weeks or months to set up your communication flows, to get the buy-ins from your internal stakeholders for the tool verification, of course, and then you're ready to go.
Amazing. All right. Then we're already at point. So just taking a second to thank you, Emile, for your expertise, also for sharing your experience, not only with us, but also in data collection. Thank you so much for guiding us through the structure, everything. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we will stay in touch. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.